There are many treasures on Earth that have not yet been found. There are legends that many of treasures are cursed and will bring their new owner not wealth and happiness, but only trouble in the worst aspect. We have collected for you the top 5 stories about cursed treasures. Support our channel with subscriptions and likes so that we continue to make great content for you. Happy viewing. When it comes to the number of dead bodies associated with a particular stash of gold, the cursed Kwenga Pass treasure tops the list. Throw in a famous Hollywood landmark and you've got a particularly tantalizing legend. With a story as winding as the Kwenga Mountains themselves, it begins in 1864 when 4 soldiers sent by Benito Juarez went to San Francisco with a treasure trove of coins and jewels to purchase munitions for the Mexican War. Along the way, one of the men died and the other 3 buried the bounty for safekeeping. However, a wanderer named Diego Marina was watching and he made off with the money soon afterward, traveling down south and stopping in the mountains above Los Angeles in what was known as the Kwenga Pass. That night, while staying in a local tavern, he had a dream that he would die if he brought the loot with him to LA. Panicked, he buried the treasure. But guess what? He still died. But not before telling his friend Jesus Martinez where it was buried. Martinez set out to find the money with his stepson, but he had a heart attack and died as they began digging. A decade later, the stepson was killed in a shootout in East Los Angeles. A small bit of the treasure was found in 1885 by a Basque shepherd, but he too perished when he fell overboard on his way back to Spain, with the gold in his pocket sinking him to the bottom of the ocean. In 1939, oil expert Henry Jones attempted to dig for the treasure in an area that butted up against the Hollywood Bowl. On November 27 of that year, a film crew watched as they excavated dirt. Jones committed suicide because of the failure later that year. In the final days of World War II, there was plenty of pillaging of gold and treasures by both sides. Famous paintings and loot simply disappeared, including an entire room, the Amber Room. It was dubbed the 8th wonder of the world and was a gift to Peter the Great in 1716, celebrating peace between Russia and Prussia. It was adorned floor to ceiling with mosaics and jewels, with walls made from 20 hues of amber, considered a precious commodity back in the day, and, from all reports, stunning in its Baroque beauty. In 1941, the Nazis seized control of it and dismantled it for safekeeping. After being displayed in a museum in 1943, the Amber Room disappeared. Since then, people associated with the room have supposedly fallen under its curse. The museum curators, Alfred Rhode and his wife, died of typhus and their bodies vanished, along with the doctor who signed their death certificate. Russian General Gusev, who had been linked to the room, also died in a mysterious car crash. Most strangely, Georg Stein, one of the most prominent Amber Room hunters, was found dead in a Bavarian forest, naked, with his stomach sliced open with a scalpel. The Ark of the Covenant, according to Jews and Christians, is a holy relic containing the broken tablets of the 10 Commandments that Moses received from God. It was also said to be a means of holy communication. As such, it is believed to have great powers. When the Israelites were banished from Egypt, the Ark was said to have parted the Jordan River so they could escape. The Ark was also credited for the fall of Jericho. But when in the wrong hands, it was said to bring terrible curses. When the Philistines captured the Ark, the entire city came down with a deadly case of hemorrhoids. They soon returned it to the Israelites. In ancient writings, there were rules about handling the Ark. The poles holding it should not be removed, the Ark should be carried on the shoulders, and whoever touches the Ark shall die. There are many more stories of the wrath of the Ark in the Bible, and its whereabouts today are unknown. Many people are now familiar with it because of the Indiana Jones movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. People still search for clues to where it may reside, but with that kind of power, you may not want to be the one find it. Here's one of the oldest known tombs that may never be opened. China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, died on September 10, 210 BC, burying with him hundreds of slaves, concubines, gold and jewels, as well as thousands of incredibly detailed terracotta statues. The site is larger than the Great Pyramid, and while many rooms and areas have been excavated, the actual mausoleum holding the great emperor remains off limits. Why? There are writings recording numerous booby traps protecting the area, but those may or may not be true. What is certain, however, is that the site is surrounded by a thick river of mercury that, if penetrated, could have deadly consequences for the excavators, and toxins could be released that would affect the entire area. Therefore, in the 50 years they've been exploring, archaeologists are still too afraid to peer inside. The so-called curse of the pharaohs is well known. Essentially, the claim is that anyone who disturbs one of the ancient kings of Egypt will die a horrible death. Perhaps the most famous example, and the instigating incident of this rumor, was due to the death of George Herbert, known as Lord Carnarvon, who financed the project to unseal King Tut's tomb. He died of a mosquito bite months after the expedition. But did others present suffer a similar fate? Australian researcher Mark R. Nelson looked into it and published his findings in the British Medical Journal. Identifying 44 Westerners who traveled to Egypt with the expedition and separating out those who were actually present at the excavation and unearthing, he found that the mean age of death for those exposed versus unexposed was 70 versus 75 respectively, thus proving that there is indeed no mummy's curse. Tell that to Lord Carnarvon